Hi, welcome to all. Today I would like to discuss about the topic the rise of nation states in Europe. Actually, the concept of nation state is a modern origin. Before we have to discuss about that topic, first of all, we can analyze what do you mean by nation state. A nation state which means the nation it have a strong government and also it have a uniform law and it have a political boundaries. Almost all the people which belong to that particular nation have followed a common language. Before we have to discuss about the topic, first of all we can try to analyze the background of the political situation which is faced in Europe. Almost during those days after the decline of Roman Empire, the political condition, the political unification of Europe was totally disappeared, and during those days feudalism dominated over the entire political condition of Europe. During the Middle Ages, almost all the power which is handled by the nobles, and also we can see the church acted as a dominant role in the entire society. Then the society which is followed a manorial type of feudal setup. That kind of system which is very much prevalent in the entire Europe. From the period of 13th century onwards, the England and France tried to maintain a good political centralization among the European countries, and England and France become the first strong nation states of Europe. The growth of these nations led to the beginning of the idea of nationalism established in entire Europe. Then what do you mean by this nationalism? Actually, nationalism as a kind of idea, as a loyalty of a nations, and also we can say that as a kind of feeling and emotions of their own nations, which is reply is the multinational dynastic empires. Then after the French revolutions, this idea, the concept of idea, paved the way for the development of modern nation states. Then what are the main features of this concept of nation states? As we can discuss about the concept of nation state, when we can follow, and almost all these nations they had followed a sense of common identity, and they were think that we are one. Then and also they were shared their own history. My history and your history has the same feeling followed by each and every nations, and also we have a common struggle. Then they faced a common struggle, and all these kind of ideas we can constitute the concept of nation state. As the concept of nation state, we can explain that is a group of people under a government with a real borders and also a common culture and a common language. They had followed a common language. On the basis of these ideas, we can develop the idea of modern state. As a modern state, it have a centralized power and a sovereign control over a clear defined territory, and also they were followed a unity among a common cause. England is considered as the first nation states in Europe. The early English political history almost depend upon the early inhabitants of England. Almost all the early inhabitants they were come from outside English territories. The dominated group of these early inhabitants, Anglo-Saxons, Jutes, Normans, and different kind of other groups also settled here, and they were established their own sovereign power over the entire political history of England. Then the first strong English ruler belonged to the Anglo-Saxon group, which is known as King Alfred, who was considered as the strongest ruler of England. Then after that, the great ruler William Duke of Normandy became the power. Actually, he was a French ruler. He invaded England in 1066 AD and he defeated Anglo-Saxon ruler King Harold. Then he became the power. He during those days introduced a lot of reforms in England. Then during those days, William ordered a survey of all the land holdings in England, and for the purpose of one of the main purpose of this survey to impose certain taxes on the landholders, and he recorded all the information in a book which is known as, the book was known as Doomsday Book. Then during those days we can see a lot of changes as in the case of the entire English political system. Then after that, the King Henry became the power. During those period we can see the political condition which is totally depend upon a absolute monarchical level. Then and he established a royal absolutism in England, and he during those days he established a common law, and also he introduced a new jury system for all the people, and all these were done in order to protect, and this kind of reforms, almost all these reforms were done in order to protect the people of the land from the tyrannical rulers. The next important political changes which we have to see during the period of King John. Actually, almost all the historians, they believe that he was a unpopular ruler. He imposed a lot of taxes to the his own people, but the peoples were not they were not satisfied the need of the peoples. Actually, almost all the historians, they point out that King John is a unpopular and a weak ruler as compared with the entire political history of Europe. From that period, almost all the nobles and barons, they revolted against King John. Then the nobles forced him to sign the historic Magna Carta, which was signed in 1215. Then the document which is we have to consider as the first document to limit the power of king, and as a part of this Magna Carta, the document guaranteed the limit of the freedom of arbitrary arrest, and also he imposed on new taxes. When the king was imposed a new taxes which was imposed on the consent of the Great Council. After that, the one of the main importance of the this Magna Carta, after that the Great Council become the major role of the English political condition, and this Great Council which was become a parliament. From that period onwards, we can see the English parliamentary system totally changed. Then after that Edward I then become the power, which is one of the main historic importance of Edward I is that he summoned a model parliament which is summoned in 1295. Parliament limited the king by an advising him on government decisions. After that, the great political changes which is happened during the period of 1455. During those days, England faced a great civil war, which is we have to known as the War of Roses. Actually, the war which is last long around 30 years. The two major royal families were actively involved in this war. After this war, England had faced a lot of difficulties. Many nobles were died during this war, and after that, after the end of this war, then the monarchy become more strengthened, and which led to the final end of the feudalism of the entire European political system. The next political transformation which is happened during the Tudor rulers. Then the King Henry was a great Tudor ruler. He became the power, and during those days, one of the main aim of his period, he suppressed the rebellions of nobles and revived a strong monarchy in England. And as a part of this political development, he founded a special court which is called as the Star Chamber, which was used for one of the main aim of this Star Chamber was against the seditious of barons, against the cruel barons. From that period, he encouraged a lot of reforms in England. As a part of this process, he established trade and commerce in England, and he developed a strong army in England. From the next great political transformation which is happened during the period of Queen Elizabeth, the period which started from the period of 1558 AD to 1603. As this period we have to consider as the golden age in the history of England. After the death of Queen Elizabeth, England came to be ruled by the Stuart rulers. The first great ruler, James I, became the power. He projected himself as a divine representative of God. Then actually he was considered, and he was himself claimed as the divine incarnation of God, and actually he was the real representative of God. Then as a part of this civil war, the society became two important groups. Then one group which is known as the Cavaliers. Actually the Cavaliers as the real supporters of kings, and the Cavaliers, they were always supported all the activities which is come from the king. And the other group which is known as the Roundheads. The Roundheads, actually they were the supporters of the parliament. So naturally this kind of dispute which is last long a lot of time, which is very much affected the entire political condition of Europe. Then the another great political transformation which has happened during the period of Charles II. The Charles II became the power in 1660 AD. After that, England witnessed a great revolution which is known as Glorious Revolution, which is happened in 1688. Then the revolution which is also we have to known as the Bloodless Revolution. Then after that, the parliamentary control over the king and queen was established. Then in 1689 a new bill was signed or passed, which resulted the end of absolute monarchy. Then after that, the parliament became more powerful, and a new Protestant state was established in England. And then the new Protestant state was established, and the state was known as England. And this state, the England, was considered as the first great nation state in Europe. Then we have to look at the another great nation which is we have to discuss about the France. Then the France also same kind of history behind the emergence of a nation state. Then after the disintegration of Charlemagne Empire, the France was divided into a number of small kingdom, and each of them ruled by small nobles. And during those days, feudalism very much affected French society also. And then after that, a long period of time, a powerful strong monarchy was established in France. Philip II, then Louis IX, then Philip IV, then Louis XI were the prominent among them. From that time, the political condition was not much favorable for France. During this period, France badly affected the Great 100 Years' War, the war between England and France. From this period, Joan of Arc, the young lady, appeared on the entire French political history. She prompted the nationalist ideology in France. Her great efforts paved the way for the establishment of a strong monarchy in France. The French king and soldiers were highly inspired by her great heroism and sacrifice. After her great efforts, which is very much influenced the nationalist ideology in France. The rulers of France were they were actively contributed for the establishment of nation states in France. As one of the prominent ruler, King Henry IV, he was considered as one of the best example of that kind of categories. He founded Bourbon dynasty and he made France become more powerful and a wealthier state. As during those days, he introduced a lot of reforms in different fields like agricultural, banking and textile and industry, which is very much benefited for enhancing the entire economic and political strength of France. After that, Henry succeeded by Louis XIII. During his reign, the French political condition is more improved and the economic sector also much improved during the time of Louis XIII. Then after Louis XIV became the power, under his leadership, France reached his height and its glory. All the powers during that time, all the powers which is concentrated on one man, and he was considered all kind of power which is handled by Louis XIV, and he declared himself as I am the state. From that period onwards, France also established colonization in a great level, and the France become a great nation. Then from during that period onwards, we can see a lot of change as the entire European countries, especially Spain, Switzerland, Persia, Austria, all these nations become a strong nation states in Europe. Thank you very much.